Welcome, folks. This is a episode of Mining the Money meets Living the Crude Life in Houston, Texas, right outside of Cowboys and Indians, right in the patio area. You can see the lovely mural. We're going to bring Imran Khan in just a moment to talk about the mural and the restaurant. Brandon Davis, the CEO, next to Imran, and then Jeremy Pate down at the end, Swan Energy as well. And it's our Mining Money segment here, live location. And gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing great.
I can't complain.
All right.
No complaints here.
Well, let's dive right into it. But first off, let's do a little commercial for the restaurant, if you don't mind. I don't know. It's up to you guys, but it's a very nice Malbec here. I'm having in the mid-afternoon. But let's talk about the restaurant. Cowboys and Indians. I was at the dog park earlier down in right outside of Seabrook. I apologize. Brought it up, and people thought, interesting concept of a restaurant. If people back in the Bakken have said the same thing. So how did this restaurant come about?
Well, oil and gas wasn't enough for me, and I wanted to kind of bring together some cultures. A lot of what we've been eating from childhood on was Indian food, and then growing up in Texas, you learn to eat fried chicken and other southern comfort foods, and we just kind of put it together, and that's what Cowboys and Indians is.
What kind of menu items do you have on there as far as from the American fare, the Cowboys fare?
Yes,
steaks.
So, we've got chicken fried steaks. We've got po' boys. We've got some different style wings, some different fusion items that we kind of blend into, and then go into some traditional Indian cuisines that are put together by my aunt and my mother. So original recipes.
And I must say they have the best fried chicken in town. And it absolutely could feed a family of four. So I've tried to talk him into having smaller portions, and he won't do it. So it's
Have
cool.
you eaten here often?
That's how we met.
Oh,
I ate here so much. This happened. That's how much I eat here.
I told somebody the other day, and this is weird coming from North Dakota, Minnesota, that Indian food is my comfort food. I absolutely love Indian food, and so I've been frequenting this one Indian food restaurant for 20-some years, and it doesn't surprise me, and so I'm glad that we're able to do this, make this work. The mural. Talk to me about the mural a little bit before we get into what the folks at Swan Energy are doing, because I understand you guys have a lot going on right now. But the mural, let's talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. So, we wanted to kind of represent, so the way it's set up, it's actually the Texas flag and then the Indian flag that's built into the center of the Texas itself. So just kind of wanted to show a blending of cultures, and a lot of the colors are very similar between the Indian flag and the Texas flag, so we kind of blended that together. And then some of our local celebrities that are always pretty popular in Houston are kind of up there from football, baseball, soccer, and also basketball. So just kind of wanted to blend it in together and kind of give it a sports feel, and just kind of represent the city.
Jeremy, you awake down there? How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing today, Jason?
Doing well. And folks, if you see me looking, I'm checking mic levels just to make sure that things are okay with. When we're outdoors, we've got wind and everything we've got to worry about. So I just wanted to include you in the conversation. We hadn't at this point yet, so I just wanted to. But let's talk Swan Energy a little bit, what you guys have going on. Before we get into too much, I like to tease without getting into your business plan too much, because one of the things that's been prevalent over the last 10 years is that a lot of really smart people I trust seem to think that 60, 70%, a lot of the drilling activity for shale play USA is going to come from the Permian and the sub layers underneath. Well, you mentioned there's some other plays that are in the hot phone calls and things like that. But let's talk a little bit about what you guys have going on. You mentioned that you've are looking or got into the Permian recently. So tell me what Swan Energy has going on and what is current of the day.
Yeah, so we are in the process of closing a deal in Howard County in the Permian, so that'll give us a presence there. We picked up a nice little acreage position with a few active wells on it. We're really excited about that because it fits hand in hand with some other stuff we're doing in the Palo Duro Basin. We're really looking forward to and excited about those projects and what they're going to bring to the table for Swan Energy and Oak Energy in the future. But we have a lot of excitement centered around the Howard County acquisition as well as Palo Duro Basin.
Brandon, let's bring you into the conversation, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit. The Permian, what's your thoughts on getting some acquisitions in the Permian? Is that where are we at?
Still scary.
Is it still?
It's expensive. It is. Yeah, we're working on this, the one he's speaking about, and it's perfect for us. But most of it is a little bit out of our reach. It's a very the entry cost is not low.
Okay.
It's exceptionally high, and then the well cost is high. So it's for us, it's something we're going to tiptoe into, not necessarily dive off into
Right.
head first. But I'm happy that we were able to get in a property there with some wells on it.
Can I ask, why did you invest in the Permian if that is scary and you know what I mean?
The way we got it done.
Okay.
It was not a traditional transaction, and it reduced our risk significantly. So, not to get into the details, but that's how
Yeah.
we did it versus writing a massive 8-figure check of some sort.
Yeah. Did you set out to get in the Permian or?
No, we just happened upon the opportunity.
Okay.
So once we evaluated it, looked at the potential, and made an offer, and it was accepted. So,
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure why they accepted our offer versus others, but my guess is that they believe in the upside of it more than they believe in what cash they could get today.
What kind of play is this in terms of? Is it horizontal? Is it a vertical?
It's horizontal. I mean, everything
Okay.
in the Permian, everything everywhere really is kind of turned into.
That's what I thought. But
horizontal.
I still see these, vertical well guys that, they're still around. So I got to ask.
Well, you have to drill vertical wells to find out what's down there. Then once you know, you can go in and drill
Yeah, that's
horizontals. But so areas that aren't as prevalently drilled vertically, it takes a few more vertical wells to be drilled before you can determine exactly how to drill your horizontal. I mean, that's just getting the data. And so, we still do vertical projects, so it's not out of the question. It's just they aren't not very often.
Is there still wildcatting? I mean, much wildcatting going on? I mean, in the Bakken, everybody knows where everything is. And they've known since like the 70s, and all they needed was price point to be this and price point to be this. And so it's very different. But I do know there is some wildcatting still going on, isn't there?
It depends on how you define it.
Okay.
Well, by the technical definition, yes.
I think everybody has their own version of wildcatting these days, right?
Well,
It's not like okay, we're just going to get our witching sticks together and go out here and find a spot and drill the hole. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I mean. I think
It's,
that's what the average person thinks wildcatting is. It's like, let's try right there. Let's see if we can get anything. Jed Clampett style. Start shooting first, and we'll bring in the drills later.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
yeah,
that's not around
Yeah, that's
anymore.
not-
Jed
not the
Clampett
deal.
oil's gone.
there's much more efficient ways to do it these
Look,
days.
it might still happen. I just don't know about it.
Yeah, we're not doing it. That's for sure. Yeah, it's not the way we wildcat. Now we may go pick up some existing wellbores and that we think have some potential in them, and we may go explore that potential through uphole recompletions or popping a zone and testing it or something like that. But we're not going to go out here and just go Jed clamping on somebody and just pick a spot and drill a hole. That's
I
not.
heard they do that in Kentucky.
They probably do.
They used to do it in North Dakota. That's for sure.
Well, actually, the one thing about North Dakota that is very unique, like Montana doesn't have this. They've started it, but back in the 50s, they started this library called the Laird Library. It's named after, I think, the guy who it was his idea. And it's up at our university, and they have every core sample from like the 50s recorded. That's how they knew where everything was. I'm not sure what Texas's core sample library at the state is like or whatever, but I know Montana's, they've started to. But Montana's a big state, much like Texas, so it's difficult. Much like we were talking about some abandoned wells earlier. You get out to Ohio and Pennsylvania, there's wells that are abandoned nobody even knows about still to this day. Drones are finding them because life used to still happen before we had cell phones recording everything. People did things, So, Imran, is that petroleum geologist, your background? Do you know much about how much advance notice somebody has before they drill? Do you know what I mean? Like I said, North Dakota, they know where everything is.
Well, I think that's you brought up a good point right there when you talked about Ohio and Pennsylvania. These are one of the earlier areas that wildcatting was done to be able to do work and drill, right? I think nowadays, with everything being so far explored compared to what it was back in whatever early 1900s, whatever you want to call it, it was a different time. So I think wildcatting was more done because of those reasons. Now with the technologies that are out there, I mean, we were in a meeting this morning with the sales guys, and we were talking about how technologies improved from 2018 to 2020. It's like iPhones, right? It's like, you have an iPhone from 10 years ago compared to today. It's like a whole nother story. And that's kind of like technology that's going on right now that helps you to be able to figure out what's in the ground beforehand from a geology standpoint and the development standpoint. So.
By the way, when it comes to big data, I'd like to just point this out, that there's a lot of changes that are happening with big data, and the integration into the oil patch is happening so fast. And it's in every department. So when CEOs and chairmen of the board come out and say paradigm shift in oil and gas, they mean it, because they're going to get sued if they don't mean it. I mean, they can't be chuck and jivers is what I'm saying. A lot of people are listening. And so when you think of HR, for example, think about the roughneck that would start in Alaska and he'd go all the way down to, Alabama, and he would be doing the outlaws the whole way. But nobody could do background checks. Well, now HR knows your background before you even come to the meeting. I mean, so big data has changed HR. In the world of marketing and media and everything, now we've got, hey, Tom, you want to grab the dog real quick? And in HR now, in marketing, we've got Facebook, and we've got LinkedIn, and we've got all kinds of different ways to micro niche. You can get a left-handed soccer player in the middle of the night marketed to if you want to. So that's changed everything. And so it's just interesting on the petroleum geology side how much it's changed with the science and with the fracking and the innovation and things. So it's a very long-winded question. What I'm getting at, though, is that big data has changed every single area of oil and gas. And I'm going to get to the financing side in just a second and the investing side. But from the petroleum side, how has it changed?
So I think so my background is chemical engineering, and I actually worked, one of my first jobs out of college, I actually drilled water wells for salt. So we explored salt domes and pulled out brine and basically processed it in a plant and made salt out of it. The process is exactly the same from a drilling standpoint in oil and gas. One of the big things when I came into oil and gas, a lot of the different data points to your exact point wasn't looked at. We would be doing so much different work around maintenance and reliability, around equipment, and a lot of different data points that you'd be able to collect weren't collected in oil and gas. When I started in a midstream area for one of the majors, and I talked with different folks at different terminal stations and pumping stations. They had no clue, and this is 10, 15 years ago. But within the last 10, 15 years, I mean, like, we implemented a lot of these different types of details and have been gathering a lot of that data. And I think now, 10, 15 years later, you've got that data built on the different types of equipment, to your point, geology, things of that nature. And that's really helped us evolve. And part of the reason why is because of the way that the cyclical nature of oil and gas has been in the last 15, 20 years, right? You've got high up points where your oil was $100, $120. No one cares about all these little details around those times. But then when you go down to $25, it's a big change, right? Paradigm shift is what you said earlier, and that's exactly what it is. So now you're looking at, making a product that doesn't have the same margins as it did, when it was $120. So based on that, everything's kind of gone through, and now data has really become a big part of what you have to do. Even within our offices, we've been working on getting a lot of the title documents, things like that, into systems, and these systems are just, coming together with one company buying another company, and you're getting conglomerate type of setups, and that's allowing us to be able to, bring data into one repository, and that really helps a lot to be able to do what we need to do.
And that's why I wanted to preface before we brought in Brandon and Jeremy into this. And Imran, have you hand the mic over to Brandon. Thank you. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was the big data change, because nobody's really talked about the big data from the investing side. And I think about an example of when I invested over $250,000 in the internet when I had a small publication, and we did not get $5 back. I'm not kidding you. But you had to go on the internet, right? And we are sitting across the table from these guys, and they're telling us up and down, we ain't ever going to need a website. So we're like, how can you not see the future? And the more I think about it now, and actually it was the present, those guys are out of business now, by the way. From Brandon, either from the CEO side, the big picture side, Jeremy from the sales and marketing and business development, to the guy who's disseminating that polished, finalized information out there, that has got to be a real frustrating time right now for people, because we are actually entering in a time where oil and gas is going to be needed more than ever. I don't care if it's the PPE angle or it's the renewable energy angle, which needs petroleum products to go about. Guys, let's talk a little bit about that barrier to the mental entry a little bit, as big data has really helped you on the investing communication side.
I hope someday I can see into the future. That would be great.
Climate scientists can.
They
sorry.
think,
Or Elon Musk, one or the other.
I've as a business owner like you're often in situations where you're presented with information as absolute, which nothing is, but it comes that way a lot, and you have to make a decision on what you believe or you don't believe, or what you think's going to happen. And I think that there's a huge element of luck involved, and the rest is just it just works itself out. You put yourself in the right position, make the best decisions you can. Yes, it's difficult, because you could spend, as a small company, we could spend $1 million a year on software for data easily. We don't. We probably spend 2/3 of that. And we're a very small company, so I can't imagine what the larger operators are spending on technology, and probably having to staff full-time teams of programmers. It's moving quickly, and the price dropping, like Imran said, has made it all get kind of more aggressive. So the price is dropping faster, or the price dropped, and it caused it sped up the process. What would have maybe taken 5 years took 2. Et cetera. And once that ball gets rolling in the technology world, it seems to keep moving. It doesn't really slow down, which is good and bad. I mean, the things that we were doing 2 years ago are obsolete with some of our stuff. So that's a never-ending moving target, and I don't think it's ever going to change as we go forward. I saw an ad today that Hyundai was making a walking car.
Yeah.
A walking car. What the hell are you going to do with a walking car? I don't know. Anyway, so we'll see what happens. I didn't see that coming, by the way.
Apparently your car talks to you, so you go on a walk with it, right? I mean, I don't know, a walking car. Well, who would have thought we ever needed a walking oil rig, I guess, but we do. I mean, so there we go. Jeremy, how about from your perspective? I mean, you've got more answers to questions probably than people have got questions for. So how is it, big data has really kind of impacted what you've got going?
Well, first of all, there, companies just put out so much data out there that, Brandon has a saying, analysis by paralysis. Is that right? And sometimes, we overthink it, over-engineer it, and there's just so much data that you have to really find a defining characteristic of what you're looking for to be able to analyze that data and move forward with a project or do a deal. You also have to be able to utilize that data to kill a deal if you need to, if you will, because there's just so much of it out there, and there's so many companies putting so much shine and flash on their stuff, trying to give it marketability to move on from it. And so a lot of what I do is utilizing those tools to kill deals in order to see if that's something that we want to move forward with, and so that kind of is where I kind of find the rubber meets the road as far as the data goes.
One of the reasons why I wanted to kind of go along these steps is because, when we did that $250,000 investment I had into the internet at that time for a small company, that put me out. That put me out of business. It's the only time I've lost my business, had to shut it down, went and worked for another company for 3 years, realized I was not an office, a cube worker at all. Went out to the oil patch, put in my notice the next week. Back now, I'm am where I am today. But I could have made it if I would have had more money. Honest to God, I could have made it if I had more money, because eventually people started paying for the internet. And what happened, and I remember sitting with a couple other independents. We call ourselves the third world of media. You've got, your big radio conglomerate. You got your newspaper that's had a monopoly for 100 years. And then you've got your, television conglomerates. And then everybody else is in the third world of media. We're scrapping for the 10% of the marketing budgets type of a thing. And we talked about a JOA. We talked about trying to figure out a way to make us stop hemorrhaging money, because we knew we had to invest in the internet because it was the future. So some of us made it, some of us didn't. And that's one of the reasons why I like what you guys have going on, because you bring people in to get through the hard times so that there is enough resources there to really offer a new type of risk management that I never had in my life. So it's anyway, I wanted to just kind of let people know a little bit about that, because in times of uncertainty, strength in numbers means a lot. Jeremy?
Strength in numbers is everything, I think. Go ahead, Jeremy.
I'm sorry, I meant branded, but Jeremy, go ahead. Anybody? So,
yeah, I mean that's one thing that we found a niche at. Not only bringing our partners in, to fund projects, but also working with other smaller companies and sticking together, so to speak. Being there to help a company, put together one of their projects and put it out there, that mutually benefits everybody, and I think that's one area that, we've gotten very good at in this past year that has really stood out to me, and it seems like that's a good direction right now, as good as any, to keep everybody going.
Brandon, you mentioned strength in numbers. As far as it seemed like you had something to say, so I apologize because I should have said your name there. But you're dealing with people's money. This is a really emotional topic, whether people know it or not. And strength in numbers can really help people out during these times. I remember back in 2009 when the housing crash was going on. $5,000 was a lot of money to a lot of people at that time for some reason. They were just like sitting on their hands, and they had $250,000 in the bank, for example, but $5,000, they were just sitting on their hands, really nervous. Talk to me about how the relationship with money can really be satisfied with that strength in numbers.
Well, I look at it like this: if you have 10 people throw $50,000 into an opportunity, and if it fails, like your internet example, and $500,000 is lost, every person lost $50,000, which we've had this happen in wells that didn't work. Then it minimizes the downside, but compared to if you had two people do $250,000 in that same project, you have two people involved and a lot more money. It doesn't really matter how financially set they are. It's more of a mindset. It's that it's much less impactful from the negative side when it's a smaller amount of money spread out. So instead of putting $250,000 in one opportunity, you put $50,000 in 5 of them. And that gets you more diversified. So if something does fail, it doesn't kill you. And as far as tight and people sitting on $5,000 or whatever, right now everything there's a lot of money on the sidelines, but it's really hard to get. People aren't not excited about moving. But at the same time, there is a lot of opportunity. So if you find the right opportunity and find the right person that has money on the sidelines, deals happen, and they're happening on a regular right now. We've been slammed.
And by the way, I brought up $5,000 because we started at 75,000, and we worked our way down to 5 just to see what the number was of entry, because And it could have been 50 cents, and people still would have been sitting on their hands in 2009. I mean, it was one of the the banks got bailed out, too big to fail. That was the deal back then, and that's why I wanted to bring in analysis for paralysis and talk about some of the ways to overcome the hurdle. Because here's the thing, guys. They just printed like $3 trillion out in the marketplace. $4 trillion, I lost track after $3 trillion, to be honest. So there's a lot of money out there. And when I look at what I'm doing now, I didn't invest much money into what I was doing, but I did what you said. I had to diversify myself a little bit. I also had to be realistic about what my returns were going to be. And the part I messed up, though, I used to think 20% was pretty good for a business owner. Apparently, you need to make 100% every year. So I don't know. I'm just kidding. I don't know what investments are, but as a business owner, my rent goes up, my business insurance goes up. But that's another reason to actually do some joint operating sharing, is because if you got a brick and mortar or you got a E&O insurance is going to go up. I had $800 worth of increases last month in rates. It's like, well, our governor said, okay, now landlords, you can now raise your rents and this and that. The COVID rules came. Everybody dove in. Insurance rates went up. This went up. This went up. And so people are, kind of getting left hooked and things like that. And so I go back to the collaboration, the strength in numbers, and just how that is such a great thing to get you through. So when you are ready to jump and do your own thing, man, what an opportunity to be in. It's anyway. So, sorry, you guys got me going a little bit, and I've had half a glass of wine. So, Imran, thank you very much.
That always helps, doesn't it?
It does. It helps me a lot. I get a little peppy at times.
From an exploration side of things,
camera guy's laughing too. Rashid, go on.
If you look at just the offshore world, for example, right? You think about, we've got different types of platforms that are in the Gulf of Mexico that have been developed. None of these things were developed by one company, right? It was partnerships of larger companies. That number that was 50,000 is probably more like 50 million
or 100.
Or 100, something like that, where they're putting in a lot bigger numbers. But they're working together, right? Because that's really what helps you to be able to eliminate or reduce and mitigate the risk that's out there. So I think that's really something to think about.
So what's next, guys? Let's get people investing. We talked about, some ways to risk manage. And it's so funny because sometimes, you get a bunch of guys in that have rode the roller coaster of business. The guys who have been knocked down and got back up. I don't know about you, but I love talking about the getting knocked down and getting backed up part of it. So let's talk about getting back up, okay? Let's talk about taking that step, because I did. I got my ass kicked. And I invested with my family on the line in the oil and gas industry. And I've had opportunities to leave the oil and gas industry over the last 4 years. And I've decided not to, not because I think it's just, but I'll tell you why. Because I think it's the best opportunity for my family. I really do. And I know what the obstacles are. But I don't see it going anywhere. 96% of what we use on a daily basis, from my toothpaste to my toothbrush to how the hell it got in my door, takes oil and gas. And whether it's the COVID plastic protection equipment wave we're going to go into, or it's the autonomous drones that are going to need all the different materials needed for us to deliver, we ain't going anywhere, guys. Right now is when you buy Apple at $2. So let's talk about how people can make money over the next couple of years. And guess what, folks? It might take 6 months. It took me a year before I saw things come back. But guess what? It came back, and then it came back with some roots. It came back more solid. And I think that's where we're at right now. Didn't you and I just talk about the next 6 months are going to be critical investing,
yes,
Brandon?
We did. And the next 6 months are going to be critical because there's going to be a lot of opportunity. Yeah. And we'll see how that comes together. As far as oil and gas and investing goes right now, there's never been a better time. Prices are down.
Not in these generations.
Values down. The way opportunities are viewed right now compared to even 6 months ago has changed. Over the last 4 years, it's completely changed. So where things are today, it is definitely time to buy. And that's, I'm sure that we're not the only ones thinking about that. And as far as investing goes, you have to pick whatever you're investing in, and make sure you're comfortable with the risk. And obviously, you're doing it for upside, but the risk is a big part of it. And now I just never forget that in oil and gas, anytime you buy into anything, you could lose everything, and that's part of the deal. So as far as getting knocked down and getting back up, it's probably the most obvious of all things. You go drill a well, it's a dry hole, you all get knocked down. And then everybody gets back up and goes and drills another well. So that's just the way the game's played. And though dry holes are a lot less frequent to drill than they used to be, it still happens. I mean, you still have issues. So I'm excited to see what happens the next 6 months. I think you're right. No matter what course the world takes as far as energy consumption goes, power generation, et cetera, there are so many other uses for oil and gas products that it's not gonna go away no matter what. If every vehicle on the planet went solar tomorrow or something else besides hydrocarbons, then there's still going to be the use of those products to make plastic, to make all of the pieces and parts that go into all of the products, including solar panels. So, that's the interesting thing.
People don't know this, but and I don't know who knows the exact, but 25% of a barrel of oil goes to diesel fuel, and then there's the other, but the bulk of it's diesel, and then it gets to a bunch of different things. Our consumption of Amazon, our consumption of DoorDash, our consumption of Uber is increasing. It is increasing, and guess what? Diesel is still needed. So it's kind of funny because probably diesel is actually getting consumed more than before because people are traveling less because unleaded, etc. Also, we're going towards a natural gas revolution, whether it's from a base load or whether it's from the plastics that can come from the feedstock of the combination or what it might be when you're talking about the hydraulic fracturing. I really see that as the security blanket in this whole thing. And people aren't going to talk about it because there's a little bit of NIMBY here, not in my backyard. Once kind of some of the public stuff goes away, as long as people can put their Keurig coffee cup going, they don't care. They'll go to the next protest, get to their next Keurig coffee, and so as long as they can't see it, things are going to be fine. So I don't know how you guys want to handle. It's a transition to give a good plug, in my opinion, for natural gas. So if you disagree, certainly disagree with me. Prices are a factor right now. However, the future is coming, 10, 20 years, 5 years. It's just, I don't see it going away for a while.
No, I totally agree with you. I think a couple weeks ago on our radio segment, I mentioned that if there was a law passed tomorrow that outlawed gasoline-driven powered vehicles, and it went to all EVs, we would need twice as much, maybe even 3 times as much oil and gas. And that's fact. Elon Musk knows it. Everybody out there knows it. So while they keep talking about getting rid of fossil fuels and doing away with them, where are you going to get where are you going to get the oil that you need to make all the plastic? Where are you going to get the cobalt? How are you going to make the titanium? All that becomes a factor in all those parts that they need to make EVs, like Brandon said. So I think right now is a great opportunity. I think you have to play the long game with oil and gas. And I think you have to have the wherewithal to be able to sit back and watch it unfold, and it's going to be a couple years before you see a return on your investment. But that's one thing I like about what we're doing here at Swan and Oak Energy right now is we're laying the ground floor for the future, and when that time comes, we're going to kick ass and take names, and that's all there is to it.
But it's not unusual to get payouts for these types of things. Get several $1,000s in a month or something like that, roll over some things. I don't know. Is it unusual to get payouts like that? Brandon?
No, not at all.
You responded. So
Are you talking about oil and gas?
Yeah, let's say you chunk in $50,000.
Wells produce 24/7, so
That's
if
what I'm
they're
saying.
producing, unless they're negative cash flow, there's distributions every month. That's
I
the way it
know.
works.
All I know is here's what
Pretty
hooked me
simple.
in. Here's what hooked me on oil and gas. Okay, I'm not kidding you. I was doing a live remote at a sporting goods store in Dickinson, North Dakota. And this guy comes up, and he was a little socially awkward, okay? But he had an oil and gas lease, so he made all kinds of money. He built a go-kart track in his backyard that cost $680,000, and he did it in 3 months, paid cash. And he did it because he had an oil and gas mineral lease. So that's why I'm saying, you said 2 years before you might get a payoff. I'm saying, this dude, he hit the jackpot. So
Yeah, it's a little different.
it is. I
It's
know.
a little
but,
different. And look, it can happen. It can happen
Right.
quick, but
but that's one of
not
those
setting
success stories.
unreasonable expectation. What's this different? He probably had minerals that he leased to someone. They drilled wells and he got paid in big chunks.
Yeah,
and that happens, and it's a lot of cash quick. It can
No,
happen.
that was family land and the whole
Sure.
deal. Oh, shit. No, that was a different story we're talking about.
absolutely
but,
different. But it does once the well starts producing it, until it's either negative cash flow or runs out of oil and gas, you get paid. And that can, the thing of the wells in the areas that are being developed now, it's not unusual for wells to produce for 20, 30, 40 years.
Oh, they can do that long?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
No kidding.
Uh-huh.
See, we're not used to that up in the Bakken. They were supposed to produce, and then they forgot to carry the one, and then they realized it was only half as amount. So then they realized they could do something on the redux, that sort of thing. It's been a little bit of a juggling act up there in some areas because somebody forgot to carry the one at one point, and so they've had to kind of make up some areas. That's for sure.
Yeah, we actually took a hard look at the Bakken back in the early 2011, and we couldn't make the math work that we were receiving, seeing, and reading from other companies. Probably for the same reason you're talking about.
Well, I was going to say that's
Like,
interesting.
It just didn't really, we couldn't get our arms around it enough to be comfortable spending any money up there, and that I think it got better as time went on, but at the outset it was a little too sketchy for us. We try to go into areas that are proven and developed and or up and coming, and so
Where are you at right now?
I
mean, just the ones that you can remember, I guess.
right now, we're in the DJ Basin heavy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the Wattenberg field proper. Actually, we have a lot of interest in wells there and leases, and we have some wells in the Scoop in Oklahoma. And in addition to that, we are working on a new project in the Paladora Basin. And then we have some East Texas properties, which is just an area that's always been good and will be. So
East Texas pretty good for gas normally too.
Yes, both.
That's what I thought.
Gas and oil. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Are you looking anywhere on the East Coast, by the way?
No.
Okay.
No.
Is that due to
I'm
regulation?
not looking for anything on the East Coast.
Okay.
No property, no girlfriends. Nothing.
No mindset, no conversation.
As far as that goes, I'm not looking on the West either.
I don't want a beer from the East Coast. I don't want a kombucha from the East Coast. That's California, sorry. That's great. All right, so let's wrap her up here, guys, because our food is about cold here. By the way, it looks fantastic. We'll have some photos up of the spread as well from Cowboys and Indians here. We got the mural behind us. Just kind of in conclusion, we'll whoever wants to go first, I'd like to give guests, of course, the final word of the show. So talk about whatever's on your mind, anything you want to reiterate, anything we left out. If you got a great chili recipe, if you want to get it out there, feel free because, hey, sometimes you never know what's going to connect with people these days.
I don't have a chili recipe, but we do have a chili cheeseburger over there that's calling my name. So, but thank you so much for your time, Jason. It's great to be able to have you here and do this whole event together.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming down. It's time to get back to work for me. They literally had to drag me over here to do this.
We saw you doing your emails in between questions.
I have some key people out of the game today because of health reasons, so I'm having to do a bunch of extra work. So I'm literally working between talking. But yeah, it was great to meet you. Happy you came down.
Thank you.
I might
for
keep
having
your
me.
dog. She's really cool. And
Frackleberry Hound.
and it was neat to do this. So Cowboys and Indians does have amazing food, and without it, I wouldn't know Imran, which I could say most days that's a good thing. Anyway.
Yeah, so, man, look, we've known each other for several years now. It's we've done several podcasts together. Glad you were able to make it. We've been talking about doing an event, an interview, something like this for a long time. It's great to be on your show today in a live format here at Cowboys and Indians with Imran and my good buddy here, Brandon. Just looking forward to the best for the rest of 2020 and looking forward to the future in 2021 for our group.
Well, that's going to do it, folks. Well, mining money meets living the crude life. That's what we have here, but it's Mining Money, weekly segment on the Crude Life. Of course, you can check it out at thecrudelife.com, swanenergyinc.com as well, and you can email us questions if you'd like.